Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar today. We have Jakob Sexton, our early careers specialist at Brabners, who's joined us again to impart his knowledge and insight into the law firm recruitment practices. It is part of our Legal Employer Insight series. So if you've already watched one of these, then welcome back. Today, we're going to be covering some information on interview techniques. So we hope you find this session useful as you navigate your way through SQE and your options for your legal career. Jakob, thank you for joining us again today. Lovely to see you. I just wondered if we could talk today about interview techniques from your perspective and the types of things that you look out for. I think once somebody is at the stage where they've been invited potentially for interview, they'll obviously want to feel confident in how to approach it. And understand really how law firms or what law firms expect of them. So I just wonder if I could just ask you to start off with perhaps telling us a little bit about the typical format of your training contract interviews, please.
Well, thank you for having me back again. Pleasure to be here. So our training contract interviews, they are a strengths-based interview. So what that means is we're basically looking at motivations. We're looking at what kind of excites you, makes you want to go to work every day versus, a more traditional competency-based interview where you're being asked questions such as, tell us about a time you've done this, tell us about a time you've done this. Because although someone could have had loads and loads of experiences in life, I think we appreciate as a firm that not everyone has access to the same opportunities. So why should we be measuring off that basis? It's more about, are you going to come to work and genuinely enjoy what you're doing? And that's what we're trying to find out through the strengths-based method. So what it typically looks like as part of that is we go through different sections, obviously, with you to look at different strengths. We're very open and transparent about what our strengths are, to be honest. Obviously, the first thing we're looking for is a good motivator for why Brabners, why commercial law, exploring a bit, what's got you to this point, why are you interviewing with us, why our firm. We then look at growth mindset. So we're trying to ask through, how are you going above and beyond? Do you value going above and beyond? Exploring, your ability to always go that next step and always want to learn and be the best you can be. We then talk through effective communication. So how do you like to communicate? What's your preferred methods? How do you enjoy engaging with people? And it's not just about being able to stand up and speak. It's also things like how do you communicate when you're too busy? How do you work with colleagues when they're not getting along with you? It's conflict situations, etc. And then we also have another one, which is around collaboration as well, because collaboration is huge here at the firm. So we want to understand how you like to work in teams, you prefer working styles in that sense as well. Obviously, those three things, those, growth mindset, collaborator, and communicator are all big headlines, but they delve into more of the motivations and questions in them as well. So that's what we explore in a nutshell.
And are you just assessing that through questioning, or are you doing it in any other sort of capacity?
So it is at that point, it is through questioning and conversation. I know I chose to stop doing scenario-based questions just on the basis that, for example, candidates that have neurodivergence, for example, sometimes when you present a really long fact pattern of a scenario and go, how would you respond? People's responses are always going to be different. The fact pattern can sometimes be hard to process and fully take in. So in light of that, we just thought, well, either way, these kind of interviews with the questions, you're just talking through how you respond and react anyway. So it just simplifies that kind of approach, basically. So yeah, just through questions and conversation.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It must be a real challenge for you as an interviewer to really pull out those sort of key skills and qualities from people who when you're interviewing such a large number of people. What's your approach when it comes to the types of qualities and skills that you're looking for in those particular successful candidates?
So I mean, we always look for a balance. When we come to what are the skills that we're trying to draw out, how are we drawing them out? We're trying to look for a balance. Obviously, we'd appreciate that some people won't have one skill and some people will. But the way that we do it is when we normally pose a question, there'll be two sides to it. So little teaser one, I guess. One of the questions we ask is, are you more reactive or do you consider yourself more proactive? And so we're trying to encourage candidates to obviously one, pick a route, but then also helps us distinguish what kind of, characteristics they have. So a lot of people will naturally say, I'm very proactive. I love being organized and I love putting things in a plan, blah, blah, blah. But then naturally you will get some that will say, no, I'm more of a reactive person in the sense that, I deal better with immediate deadlines.
Yeah.
We get a lot of people that think reactive is bad in that scenario, but actually, if I went to a proactive person at 5 o'clock and went, urgent piece of work and need it done in 30 minutes and they can't do it, then I need someone who can. So that's when we turn to the reactive person. So we kind of offer an alternative line, if that makes sense. So we're not just saying to people, tell me about how you're proactive, because they might not be. They might be awful at planning. It's kind of getting them to then tell us which route they go down, and we can assess those based on their response, basically. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, no, completely, completely. And actually, one thing that you raised in a webinar we did on assessment centres was around the fact that you don't really assess on the kind of technical legal knowledge for that element. Is that assessed in any way during your interviewing?
No, it's not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We really do try and stay away from technical assessments, mainly because, we get a lot of applicants, for example, that aren't law students. They come from, different backgrounds. We get a lot from like history and geography and all sorts. And you can never expect that person to know the technicality because they've not been in that environment where they're going to understand the technical legal stuff. It's, for us, the main focus is about the skills and strengths that they can bring to the role, basically, because we know that we can teach technicality when it comes to different areas of law. We can go through all the different types of technicality they're going to need, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's really difficult to bring someone in that possesses the correct strengths to then do so. I think that's one of the main reasons why we look at growth mindset, because we want to bring in people that want to learn and just be the most that they can be and always go above and beyond. And they're the people that are going to come in and really want to learn the technicality and get to grips with it. So yeah, I get at interview point, it really is just about what strengths can you bring to the table rather than are you necessarily technically able. Plus, I always say, if you ask anyone, are you good with technicality or anything like that, they're always going to say yes. It's really difficult to measure. You never know what someone's going to be like, so they walk through the door to a certain extent. So, we could have someone who's amazingly technical, but then they could get here and it just not work. And that's why we're there to teach them and help them and guide them anyway.
Absolutely. And one thing I suppose I always talk to students about is trying to build up that, you talked about growth mindset, but the mindset around things like commercial awareness, for example, and it's something that grows over time. I appreciate it's a skill, but it's also a mindset. And I wondered whether you kind of expect candidates, I suppose, to demonstrate commercial awareness as part of the interview process that you run.
Yeah, we do, because it's so important to a career, especially obviously in a predominantly commercial corporate law firm. For the first section, when we kind of discuss why Brabners and why commercial law, that's where we're trying to tease that out of them. Again, it's not like a scenario-based question when we're saying this business has gone under, how are you going to help them? It's more just getting people to verbalize their motivators, like, why do you want to work in a commercial law firm? Do you understand what that actually means when we're saying that question? Because a lot of people, they don't. And this is where we're trying to work and find out how much people have researched they've done, how much they really know about what that means, etc. It's to asking questions around things like our practice areas versus our sectors. A lot of people think they're the same thing. People go, I would love to work in your sports law department, but actually sports law is a sector that departments feed into. So it's completely different. So do you understand the difference between them? Do you know how they work and how they're different? It's about, looking at it a bit differently to the traditional kind of like, business is failing. What would you advise this client? Because they're never going to know the answer to that. But we do definitely place importance on it, because I just think it's an area that people, when they come into the firm, it's that kind of having that logical thinking behind it and having a logical, problem solving curiosity around commercial issues is just really important.
And I know this is going to be quite a hard one to answer, but you got, I guess, you've touched upon it around the skills that you're expecting people to demonstrate, be that commercial awareness, be that other. But is there anything that makes an applicant sort of stand out during the interview process from your own experience?
So it's so funny. I always think people always think they have to stand out, be the most, be the best, but that's not always the case. Um, I've heard people walk through the door before that have had the most extravagant stories and lives. They've set up a clothing brand in their pastime. They're a millionaire already by 18. And you're
Wow.
like, how have you done that? But that to me, okay, great. They've got a great business, whatever. But does that mean they're going to be a good lawyer? I don't know. For me, it's at that point, it's all about getting to a certain point. It's about hitting a benchmark rather than trying to be snap bang at the top. Because what we will do is once the assessment centre's done, we look at the whole application as a piece. We look at the initial one, the video interview, the situational judgment test, every single part of the assessment centre all gets factored into one decision. So although we want people to come in and somehow shine in the slightest, we don't expect everyone to have done everything and be the most, polished, fab person ever. It's just coming with some enthusiasm and sit there and kind of make us think that you really want this. And that's what will make you stand out, because when you are enthusiastic and you showcase your want and drive for it, it just really just shows you as a great motivated person. And if you've done the interview well, then that kind of pushes you through more than anything. So don't worry, you don't have to have a £1 million that was an exaggeration, by the way. It was not, it wasn't that.
It's a great example.
But you don't have to have climbed a mountain or
Yeah.
done a hugely successful business or anything. It's just come in, be the best you can be, and then we'll review it all from there.
Brilliant. That's a great way to end, because I think it's a really nice takeaway actually for students that be enthusiastic and be motivated, because actually if it shines through, that's one of the biggest hurdles, I think. So Jakob, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate your insight, and thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.